Hello and welcome to this year's WRRAP Christmas quiz. We're featuring all of the Welsh regions and a little surprise at the end. There are 25 questions, 5 from the Scarlets, 5 from the Ospreys, 5 from Cardiff, 5 from the Dragons, and at the end you will have 5 from the Celtic Warriors plus a tiebreaker if you want to be that competitive. So let's have a little look at the rules. They are very simple. 1 point per question. Don't cheat. You know what your mother told you. Put your competitors off as much as is humanly possible and enjoy it, especially putting each other off. It isn't as difficult as improving the Dragons' defense. Nobody would want to do that. So if you are playing as a drinking game, there is 1 finger per wrong answer. There are 2 fingers if you fail to answer, and you need to neck your chosen drink if your mates call you out for putting the most ridiculous answer on the planet. Okay, let's do this year's quiz, starting off with the Dragons. Questions from the Dragons. Question number 1. Who holds the record for the most caps for the Dragons? That's who holds the record for the most caps for the Dragons. Question 2. Who was the first Dragons player to reach 100 games for the Dragons? Back then, when the Newport went Dragons, but the Dragons. So who was the first player to reach 100 games for the Dragons? Question 3. How many league wins did the Dragons secure in their opening season for playing 22 games? So of the 22 games played in the 2003-2004 season, how many of them games did the Dragons win? Question 4. Who did the Dragons lose to in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup in the 2015-16 season? That's who did the Dragons lose to in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup in 2015-2016 season? Question 5. Who is this handing off? So he's in a Bath kit, but he's an ex-Dragons player. And that handoff is what you might now call a clenched fist. But who is this handing off? Okay, on to the Cardiff round. Question 6. Who was Cardiff's biggest win against? Who did Cardiff play when they recorded their biggest ever win? Question 7. Rupeti Timani made his international debut for which national team? Rupeti Timani made his international debut for which national team? Question 8. How many league games was Mark Hammett coach for? So Mark Hammett coached Cardiff. How many games, how many league games was he in charge for? Question 9. Who did Cardiff play in their last game at the Cardiff City Stadium? So Cardiff's last game at the Cardiff City Stadium, who was that against? And question 10. Who is this? Okay. Ospreys questions. Question 11. How many tries in total did the Ospreys score in the 2022-23 URC season? So how many tries did the Ospreys score in the URC in the 22-23 season? So that's not including Europe, URC only. Question 12. How many Ospreys caps does Alan Wynne-Jones have? How many Ospreys caps, that's not including friendlies or non-purpose games, how many Ospreys caps does Alan Wynne-Jones have? Question 13. Which team did Steve Tandy coach after leaving the Ospreys? Which team did Steve Tandy coach after leaving the Ospreys? Question 40. Where did the Ospreys play their first ever professional league game? So when the Ospreys are formed, the Nice Swansea Ospreys as they were back then, where did they play their first professional league game? And 15, which Osprey is this in a national shirt? Which Osprey is this? Okay, moving on. Scarlet. Question 16. Who was the Scarlets' top try scorer last season? So who in League and Cup was the Scarlets' top try scorer last season? 17. Who captained the Scarlets in their first league game as the Scarlets in 2003? So who was the Scarlets' first captain in 2003? Question 18. Who took over as coach after Gareth Jenkins left in 2006? So who took over as coach of the Scarlets when Gareth Jenkins left in 2006? Question 19. Who was the first Scarlets game in Europe against? So who was the first Scarlets game in Europe against? And number 20, who is this? Okay, time for the nerds amongst you to get proper excited now. Celtic Warriors. Celtic Warriors existed for one season way back at the start. So here's 5 questions on the Celtic Warriors. 21. Who captained the Warriors for their only season? So they only had one season and then they were disbanded. Who was their captain for their first season? 22. Name the Welsh international outside half who'd agreed to join the Warriors, only to find out they were disbanded before he was able to train. So who had agreed to join the Warriors and then didn't play or train because they were disbanded before he was fit? 23. Who was the assistant coach for the Warriors in their first season? Who was assistant to head coach for the Warriors in their first season? 24. Who was the Warriors' last game against? That's who was the Warriors' last game against. And question 25, who is this? And your tiebreaker. So if your scores are fairly close, or maybe you just need something to pass the time, your tiebreaker for the WRRAP Christmas Quiz 2023. How many points were scored by the Welsh regions combined in the URC last season? So this is URC only, not including the European Cup. Welsh sides, how many points were scored in total? Okay, so just before we move on to the answers, which I'm sure you will all find very interesting, a big thank you from everyone involved in the WRRAP podcast for your support over the last 12 months. It's been an absolute crazy couple of seasons. We're at the end of our second season, well, halfway through our second season now. So you can find the WRRAP podcast. You can chat to us on X or Twitter, whichever you choose to call it, on Facebook. You'll find us on the Sports Social Network, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and more importantly, you'll find us right here on YouTube. So every week, you will find the WRRAP podcast, you'll find Scarlet's Fever, you'll find the Ospreys Eyrie, you'll find Cardiff Central, you'll find the Dragon's Lair, and you'll find Pod Cymru, the Welsh language podcast, right here on YouTube and on all of those locations. So do please, follow us and enjoy the bit of rugby with us. So, okay, so the answer to question number 1 was, so who holds the record for the most caps for the Dragons? And the answer is Lewis Evans with 220 appearances. Question 2, who was the first player to reach 100 games for the Dragons, or the Newport Gwent Dragons? Adam Black is the answer there. Question 3, how many league wins did the Dragons secure in their opening season? 16. Out of 22 games, the Dragons won 16 games. They put them 3rd in the table in their first season. Just think of that now. Question 4. Who did the Dragons lose to in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup in 2015-16 season? The answer, Montpellier. And question number 5, who is this handing off? That is, of course, Aled Brew. So yes, the bath top was there to try and throw you, but those that know will know that was Aled Brew. Okay, Cardiff. Right, answer to this first one's going to challenge me a little. Who's Cardiff's biggest ever win against? So it was 104 points to 12 against Femi CZ Rovigo. So I think that's how you pronounce it. Femi CZ Rovigo. And it was in 2015, 104-12. Question 7. Lapeti Tamani made his international debut for which side? It was Australia first. He made his debut for Australia and then he played for Tonga. Question 8. How many games did Mark Hammond coach for? He was in charge for 15 league games. They won 4, lost 11, and that's why he didn't make the end of the season. Question 9. Who did Cardiff play in their last game at Cardiff City Stadium? So this one is purposely in there to throw you. The last game at Cardiff City Stadium was the Scarlets on January the 9th, 2021, during COVID, when the Arms Park was a hospital. So that was when they played their last game at Cardiff City Stadium. And question 10, who is this? Tom James, Cardiff's top try scorer. If you did not get that, you are not a proper Cardiff supporter. Okay, let's have a little look then at the Ospreys. Question 11, how many tries in total did the Ospreys score in a 22-23 season? That was 52. 52 tries in total last season. How many Ospreys caps does Alan Wynne-Jones have? Alan Wynne-Jones has 257 appearances for the Ospreys. Question 13 was, who did Steve Tandy coach after leaving the Ospreys? And the answer there was the New South Wales Waratahs. He then came back to coach in Scotland, but his first coaching appointment after leaving the Ospreys was the New South Wales Waratahs. Question 14, where did the Ospreys play their first professional game? And the answer was the Knoll. And who is this in a Welsh shirt? That was Ian Goff. Okay, let's have a little look at the Scarlets questions then. So, who was Scarlets' top try scorer last season? That was Steph Evans with 12 tries, 6 in the league and 6 in Europe. Question 17, who captained the Scarlets in their first season? Lee Davis. Those of you who were around will remember the fuss about Lee Davis going to the Scarlets at the time. So 18, who took over as coach when Gareth Jenkins left to coach Wales in 2006? That was Phil Davis. And question 19, who was Scarlets' first game in Europe against? Northampton Saints on the 5th of December 2003, which they won 14-9. And question 20, who is this? Tal Selly, famous for first man to play for all 4 Welsh regions. Okay. Let us move on to the Warriors then. This is when the geeks get excited. 21. Who captained the Warriors in their only season? That was Gareth Thomas. 22, which Welsh international signed for the Warriors to find out they were disbanded before he could even train with them? It was Arwell Thomas, wee little diddy guy outside half. Scored a cracking try against Scotland away, if I remember. 23, who's assistant coach to Mike Ruddock in the Warriors' first season. So Mike Ruddock was head coach. Who was his assistant? That was Lynn Howells. 24, who's the Warriors' last game against? Their last game was against Connaught. It was a 20-3 win. And finally, who was the image that we showed you? That was Kerry Sweeney. So total your points up, have a little chat amongst yourself, and then if you need a tie break to decide who is your WRRAP Christmas quiz champion for 2023, your tie break question was, how many points were scored in total by the Welsh sides in last URC season? And the answer is 1,251. So Scarlets had 435, Cardiff had 425, Ospreys 400, Dragons 391. So a big thank you once again from everyone involved in the WRRAP. It's been a fantastic couple of seasons so far. We wish you all a fantastic Christmas. We've got loads of these quizzes up and available on YouTube. So there's the WRRAP quiz, there's the URC quiz, there's an international quiz, and there's a quiz for each of the regions. So they'll all be on our YouTube channel. Please enjoy, and we'll see you again when we come back in January.